Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, is one game that I dread, yet get excited about replaying. From its strange usage of levels increasing iframes, the awesome bosses in the DLC, there are many things to look forward to in a playthrough. This game may be divisive amongst Soulsborne fans, but still is one fun game. Recently, I want to go back to this game during another challenge run. Let's waste no time and get straight into the rules. Starting off, we can only use Pyromancies. There are many weapons in DS2, from powerful hexes to large greatswords, but in this run we will be limiting ourselves to just Pyromancies. Next, we must beat the game and DLCs. DS2 has a large map and 3 DLCs, so we will have to conquer them all. Subsequently, we must defeat all bosses within the main game and DLCs. Whether it's a minor side boss or one bearing a Lord Soul, all have to fall. Lastly, glitches and or exploits are allowed, so expect some cheeky ways to take down bosses and get around areas. This is the second Dark Souls 2 challenge on the channel, so I'm excited to share this with everyone. First was the daggers only run that I did, which was a blast and a headache all in one. Let me know down below if you'd like to see more DS2 content in the future. Make sure to smash the like button, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Without further ado, let's get into the run. The Pyromancy only run, you'd expect me to be a pyromancer, right? Well, in DS2, there is no pyromancer class, unlike DS1 and DS3. Because of this, we are going to need to find a pyromancy flame, which luckily is located nearby to the Tower of Flame and in the wharf. After reaching Majula and collecting the Estus Flask shard within the well, ventured towards where the pyromancy flame is located. We'll speed this up as I discuss a few things. First is that technically the run has already ended, since no pyromancy flame can be attained at the very start of the run. Because of that, some enemies, like the 2 bosses in the way of the pyromancy flame, had to be killed with normal weapons. As this is a vanilla playthrough on the Xbox, I cannot mod this in beforehand. Regardless, the run will continue, essentially starting at this point instead of in the things betwixt. As there are over 30 plus bosses left to go, I think taking down 2 early bosses isn't the worst thing. Compare that if you tried using Deathblight only in a fresh Elden Ring playthrough and you're not using a weapon until at least Castle Sol, but I digress. Eventually we acquire the pyromancy flame once the sentry boss is taken down. The catalyst in our hands now, we must acquire some pyromancies to use the thing. I set my sights on rescuing Rosabeth, as she has some useful items when brought back to Majula. For now though, I bought some of the basic spells such as Fireball, Fire Orb, and Combustion. Combustion and its upgraded version were very powerful in the DS1 playthrough of this challenge, but we'll have to see how they fare in this game. Subsequently, I progressed through the Forest of Fallen Giants. Since we have just acquired a few pyromancies, I was curious to test out the damage. While the normal fireball may not be the best for bosses, it will help me clear enemies. Poison Mist seems it will be quite good since it deals a lot of damage over time, alongside having 2 charges. These are just some of the many pyromancies we will collect throughout the game. Like most games, some will be more optimal than others, so it'll be interesting to test and see which ones come out on top. Now, Dark Souls 2, specifically Scholar of the First Sin, is quite different to your other Soulsborne game. Mostly that each encounter will have a few or more enemies to deal with. Because of this, the player is meant to slowly deal with enemies rather than speedrun past. From enemies interrupting door opening animations to closing the game and having the enemies stay exactly where they are rather than respawning at their starting point. This is what most other Souls games do. Even though you are meant to slowly defeat each group of enemies, for this challenge I'll be running past most of them, gathering the necessary loot and taking down priority targets. Here later on I will talk more in depth on the differences and my personal take on this game. Ultimately, we reach the last giant, one of the many bosses we will encounter, but specifically, he is on the main progression path. As mentioned in the rules, we will be taking down all bosses in this run, but no matter what, we have to conquer each one. This boss is rather straightforward, but if caught off guard, he can deal some high damage. Best to avoid them. Pyromancies are dealing adequate damage, but already I can tell we might run into some problems later. For instance, not having enough casts since the player is limited to a certain amount each life. There are a few ways to increase the amount alongside the pyromancies the player can equip, but at the moment we are just not that high level. In the end, with the giant defeated, I upgraded the flame back in Majula, then prepared for the next fight. With the last giant defeated and some levels finally under our belt, I felt it was time to take on Pursuer. Adaptability is one of, if not the most important stats in the game, with the level being tied to the player's iframes. We'll have to ensure that this stat alongside Vigor and Intellect are upgraded. Vigor for the HP, and Intellect/Faith to get more spell slots. The poison damage has been really useful so far in the run. It's allowed me to get poison proc damage alongside whatever pyromancy I've equipped, such as Combustion or Fire Orb. My favorite things is pairing with an empty hand, as this doesn't go against the rules, and it looks just badass as heck. It's something I'll be doing often. Eventually we take down another foe, earning more souls, and slowly inching towards Drangleic Castle. Once I had gotten the Pyromancy Flame reinforced to +2, I ventured into the Lost Bastille. I dealt with an NPC invader using gravity, and spoke with the blacksmith behind the hidden wall. In this location we can find a few bosses: Ruined Sentinel Trio, the Gargoyles, and the Lost Sinner. The trio fight, I was a bit nervous if I would actually have enough cast to take them down. Even though they may not have the largest HP pool, you don't have the highest damaging pyromancies. This is a good time to talk about Amber Herbs. No, not Amber Heard, but herbs. These can be looted or bought around the world, and will slightly restore spell uses. This is one of the many ways to increase spells. The crazy thing is that there are better options than this. I tried to play things as optimally as possible, dodging when necessary and getting damage in when openings presented themselves, though this was all easier said than done. No matter, as they all perish under our flame. As we enter the Lost Sinners fight, I want to talk about this challenge and how I'll be showcasing it in this video. Dark Souls 2, like most games in the series, has a lot of bosses. While it may not be as many as Elden Ring's total, there are still numerous bosses. Because of this, I won't be covering every boss in the game. Mostly the notable encounters, funny moments, challenge feats that I conquered. Otherwise, this video would be hours long. If you are interested in this challenge and other challenges I post, head over to the VOD channel. Here I post streams and highlights from the challenges I complete. From Sekiro to KOTOR, there have been a lot of fun and tough moments. It's been awesome to see people enjoy both channels. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe to help support me in the channel. Now, let's get back to the challenge. Our next stop is Brightstone Cove. Easily the toughest boss in the whole game is Prowling Magnus and Congregation. This fight took at least 30 tries to complete. Then it was off to fight the Duke's dear Freya. Even though I have played DS2 a few times, Night Rain being my main Soulsborne game, I have grown familiar with this boss's moveset. Run in for a few hits, wait for the web beam, and switch to the other head, then rinse and repeat. The toughest part about this fight is that the player has to be facing Freya directly, as anything that doesn't hit the head won't inflict damage. I haven't really talked about the curse status effect and dying within DS2's world. One thing that I really enjoy about this game is its use of slowly lowering the player's HP bar upon each death, or if the player gets cursed. Why do I enjoy this? It punishes the players for misplays and promotes getting good, as the Soulsborne community likes to say. Like this version more so than the Demon Souls one, that is a bit more punishing. Even though I am complimenting DS2, this game is far from perfect. My dear friend Gravity and I had another chat. Gotta love DS2. Oh, the classic Poison Swamp. Fortunately, there were numerous items that were worthwhile here. It always makes me think of that one Happy Souls moment. Once I had praised the sun, I made my way into the Covetous Demons arena. Basically, when I get to this point, it's a nice break, an easy boss fight, and getting a ton of souls for free. Generally, this behemoth is a walk in the park in regards to taking him down. It's pretty interesting that I got invaded during this challenge run. I'm happy to see people still playing these games. Ultimately, it was time to fight Mytha the Baneful Queen, one of my top 5 bosses in the main game. Someone who really enjoys Greek mythology, it's cool to see a boss take on a similar appearance to Medusa. I recently found out that you could actually parry this boss, which I did not attempt in this challenge, but is something I will definitely be trying in the future. A lot of enemies in this game can be parried. It has been cool to slowly learn which ones can and can't. At this point, we have gotten a few more pyromancies such as Flame Swath. These newer ones have insane damage and are really fun to use, especially that lingering flame. The explosion makes you feel powerful. Because we defeated Mytha, we were able to progress through Iron Keep. One strange thing about this is that the player rides the elevator upwards, which means that this Iron Keep is either extremely high up in some sort of mountain or just plopped high in the sky. Every time I get to this area, I can't help but laugh at it. Returning to Majula, I spoke with laddersmith Gilligan and had him set up some ladders. I slowly descended while collecting loot and defeating enemies, till eventually I reached the gutter. This area is quite infamous for its pitch black setting and carefully navigating its maze-like pathways. The gutter and subsequent Black Gulch have many enemies and traps that inflict poison. One thing that I really enjoy about Demon Souls and DS2 is that the player can rely on multiple healing types. Demon Souls had the various grasses, and DS2 has the life gems alongside Estus flasks. This game is especially helpful since there are just so many enemies you will eventually need to heal, then again and again. So it's nice to have a backup. Other useful thing is that life gems work really well at countering poison, as it will heal back the tick damage, and lasts a decently long time. What are your thoughts on grasses in Demon Souls and life gems in DS2? I'm interested to hear if you enjoyed them, disliked, or maybe somewhere in the middle. Subsequently, I descended below Majula once again, this time entering the Grave of Saints. I strangely really enjoyed this area. The ruined graves and tombs, the plethora of easily killable rats, It's just a fun and quick zone. While I was running through, I ended up being summoned to another world. This was such an epic fight, since we were both using Pyromancies, but the playing field was actually quite even. Let the montage commence. Realistically, once that poison damage procced, I think he knew he was toast. In the end, we emerged victorious. For those who are more familiar with DS2, I'd be interested in hearing why I was summoned. If it was just pure chance, or because I was part of a certain covenant. I traded the Royal Rat Vanguard soul for Toxic Mist. This combined with poison is going to be putting the work on these fools. Oh, Iron Keep. I both love and hate this area. Basically, if you try running through this area at all, you will pay the price in blood. I eventually got good, defeating the Knights, and then the regular Smelter Demon. One thing that makes DS2 stand out from the rest of the series are the bonfire aesthetics. When burned at a bonfire, this will set that specific area into New Game Plus in regards to damage. If you keep, activating it at that specific one, it will cycle it into the next New Game Plus cycle and so on. Bosses will respawn, and enemies will inflict more devastating attacks alongside having more HP. Now, why do I bother doing this? What's the benefit? Well, there are a few reasons. First, no doubt, is the souls. Compared to the first time coming around to this boss, the player is rewarded with a much larger sum of souls. Next, this specific boss will drop the Southern Ritual Band at its +2 state, greatly enhancing the amount of spells the player can additionally select and equip. As more spells means more damage, you cannot go wrong with more damage. We still have a lot of the base game to go. It's quite hilarious how old Iron King gets destroyed by the poison and toxic procs. In the end, with all 4 lords defeated, Aldia, Scholar of the First Sin, makes his first appearance. Speaking about the state of the world in each encounter, sometimes asking the player what our choices would be. You'll see him many more times throughout the game, since he is the final boss. Sooner or later, I ventured into Dranglet Castle. This was to progress the main pathway, alongside speaking with his ghostly NPC who sells wilted dusk herbs, greatly restores spell usage. Fortunately, they are quite costly at the moment, so I avoided them for the time being. Spoke with the queen, who quickly tried to turn us away from these lands, then entered the duo Dragon Rider fight. Any duo or trio boss fight is going to be quite difficult, just because of managing their positions and avoiding damage. At this point, we have upgraded the Pyromancy Flame to a decently high level, so we were able to dish out some high damage. Another great example of our damage output by this point was during LGK's fight. Man, once I got that rhythm down, he just did not stand a chance. Flame Swath has got to be one of the coolest pyromancies. Well, that animation and damage it deals just slaps so hard. That's one of the many reasons I like to do challenge runs, because it forces me to use items, weapons, spells, and so on that I may not typically use in a run. The Shrine of Amana. For most players, just hearing that name will bring back PTSD flashbacks. This time around, at least compared to the Daggers Only run, we actually have some type of ranged option. With that in mind, things will be slightly more manageable. Slightly being the key word. I must have died at least 5+ times here. Not even trying to run past, but just simply deal with them. The amount of enemies are insane here, easily overwhelming the player. As you're going through this area, let me talk about the upcoming marathon and the subsequent all achievement / trophy runs. Next month, May, I'll be doing a bunch of Star Wars related challenge runs to celebrate the series and the support over the years on those types of videos. From KOTOR Fists Only to Republic Commando Melee Only, things will be challenging to say the least. Make sure that you are following me on Twitch and the VOD channel to stay up to date with these challenges. Once I finish those challenges, I'll be going through the remaining Souls games that I have yet to get all achievements or trophies for. It includes DS1 to DS3 and then Demon Souls. Sekiro, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, and Night Rain I've already covered on the channel for those who are interested. Links will be down below for all the above mentioned things. I decided to update the drip a bit once I reach Undead Crypt's entrance. At this point in the game, enemies are hitting high damage numbers and things will only get more challenging as we progress through the game and DLCs. Belstat, the Royal Aegis, has to be one of the more epic encounters in the game. Protector of the King, this foe will do anything to make sure he's left unharmed. Belstat is fairly aggressive, attacking a few times in a combo to then doing a super delayed attack. Because of the aforementioned things, I really had to manage my stamina for dodging and cast spells when openings presented themselves. Ultimately, we are able to defeat him and see the state the king is in, cursed and aimlessly walking around. With the king's ring in our possession, we are now able to progress further throughout the game. As we go through the dragon shrine, taking down the ancient dragon, collecting the giant souls through the memories, entering the dark chasms to fight Dark Lurker and beyond, let's talk about the run so far. How have pyromancies fared thus far in the game, specifically using only them? Are they better or worse than DS1s? What are the plans for late game bosses and DLCs? Pyromancies are great weapons used during a playthrough, whether it's a slow poison or fire orb. Each has their own time to shine. I would say that over 90% of the pyromancies are really useful in most, if not all, situations. There are a few exceptions which I may have used for one specific boss, if that at all. Just like the other Souls games, there are obvious weapons or spells that are much better than others. Combustion and its upgraded version seem to be the pinnacle of damage and a quick casting speed. Nonetheless, I still had to time my usage, as a misplay would chunk my HP bar. Most enemies are weak to fire and or poison / toxic procs, so most encounters prove to be straightforward. Then you get someone like Ancient Dragon that has a large health pool and is resistant to fire. Yeah, in that fight, I had to use some of those consumables to replenish my pyromancies. While pyromancies may be solid weapons to cast, using only them has been a hindrance in some cases, evident by the dragon's fight and many more to come. For most bosses, getting past them with pyromancies only has been straightforward, or they made me work a bit to defeat them. This is basically the point from here on out where things are going to be dang difficult. Pyromancies are very similar to DS1s, but there were a few new ones that I really enjoyed. We still have a lot of the game to go through, and so plans for late game and DLC mostly revolve around me increasing my level as much as possible, getting items to boost our damage. There are 3 DLCs, and each one is quite arduous, but extremely rewarding. At the end of the video, once all is said and done, we'll talk about the run as a whole, but it's nice to touch base concerning the run. At last, we arrive at the throne itself, conquering every main game boss the game has to offer, besides Royal Rat Authority, which I defeat before entering the DLCs. It's probably one of the more unique counters in the game, and possibly the Soul series as a whole. One reason that this fight has slowly grown on me. Basically, there are 3 phases, each with their own separate bosses with their own particular combos. Initially, the player has to fight the Throne Defender and Watcher. With most duo or trio fights, there are plenty of openings, but you just have to know when, and pray that you don't get punished for it. When one of their HP bars is depleted, the other boss will slowly revive them. Because of this, I would have to switch targets, ensuring they had roughly the same health. Once they are defeated, the real boss of this 3-phaser shows herself. Ashandra, the Queen, and Deceiver of the King. Ultimately, it was her grand design that led things to this moment, light and dark clashing. Making sure to not get cursed over and over again, avoiding her laser beams, and her scythe attacks was easier said than done. Make sure to attack from afar rather than up close, as for me personally, I'd rather dodge the laser beams than her melee attacks. With Nashandra's soul in our possession, Aldia, Scholar of the First Sin, speaks to us one last time, said as a foe. The section looks a lot harder than it really is, but dang, he does have some cool attacks. Mostly that he's just fire resistant, and so it takes a bit of time. In the end, we link the flame, becoming part of the cycle. This is one moment any Soulsborne fan will relish in, leading the game and getting that awesome end cutscene. Main game and all of its bosses defeated, I set my sights on collecting the DLC keys. One of them is found on the main progression pathway, so we already have one of 3. While I do quite dislike Dark Souls 2 as a whole, compared to the rest of the Souls games, the DLCs are the best part. Pretty much all the bosses slap in these DLCs, though there are some exceptions, which I will talk about as we get to them. To rant for a minute, it's such a crime that Night Rain has only had one DLC so far. I was really hoping to see the Ivory King or even Sin the Slumbering Dragon. I'm sure there are a lot of difficulties when porting each boss from the Dark Souls series. It's just so surprising there have been such little additions. I'm happy to have Smelter Demon and Artorias, and they're missing the opportunity to please the fans. The Sanctum City and its labyrinth of hallways, doors leading to nowhere, and death drops. This is one fun place to go through. For the 3 DLCs, there are 3 bosses in each of them, so 9 total. This is the DLC with a gank fight, and so I had to endure a fun, very fun fight. Getting to this boss too is also very challenging, as it's a gauntlet to get to their arena. Then we actually get to the good fights in this DLC, the Queen and Sin the Dragon. Both of these are really enjoyable enemies to fight. Fortunately, they're tough as hell. The Queen can summon minions to protect her, and even Velsat sometimes, and Sin blasts the arena with poison and toxic damage. Now, if there's been one major benefit to using Pyromancies Only, it'd be in Sin's fight. Since in my daggers only run, those weapons broke at least 2 times each, and I had like 3 daggers. As Sin degrades weapons extremely fast, having range options has been very useful. Subsequently, I entered the old Iron King DLC, and once again was very excited for the bosses here. Sir Alone and Fume Knight are just peak bosses. They have some lightning fast attacks, and so I had to really manage my stamina and dodge at optimal times. Each time I encounter these guys, it really makes me feel like the Lord of Cinder when I defeat these challenging foes. At last, we have the enhanced Smelter Demon fight. Basically just the original but blue, and his attacks are slightly faster. Poison and toxic procs, just like in the original fight, put the work in on this dude. So after a while, we cleared another DLC. Of the 3 DLCs, this is possibly my favorite because it has some really interesting lore alongside making the player backtrack to newly opened areas. Straight away, there is a boss that the player can fight, but unless they have a special item, this boss will be completely invisible. Because of that, I decided to go the long way, since we are going to need to collect the knights for the big boss of this DLC. With the eye eventually acquired, I entered Ava's arena and swiftly defeated the king's pet, then spoke with the queen. We eventually learned the fate of this snowy landscape, forced to be in this state since the Ivory King sacrificed himself to stop the chaos, quite literally. Going back through areas that were previously frozen, we are now able to interact and befriend knights around the land. Sooner or later, with 4 knights in our roster, we take the fight to the corrupted king. Words cannot describe how epic this fight is. Fighting alongside allies while slowly the Ivory King is released. Pyromancies such as Combustion were excellent since the casting speed was near instant, allowing me to dodge shortly after attacking. Pretty much all the DLC bosses being in Insano mode, it's great to inflict damage quickly, then back away safely. Last boss of the game, DLCs, and the challenge as a whole are the other King's Pets, a duo fight. This fight is basically a normal fight. What's not normal is getting to this boss. Pretty much any past DS2 player will recognize this and the shrine as being damn difficult areas. As we progress to the boss fight and fight them, let's talk about the run as a whole. Pyromancies are interesting spells to use. On one hand, it's nice being able to attack from afar, but it can be debilitating relying on a certain amount of cast per each spell. Whether it's defined cast or FP, as in the case of the later games, each system has their own pros and cons, but I found this and DS1 systems to be much more limiting. Dark Souls 2's main game and DLCs are no joke, even without challenge run requirements. So it's been interesting to see how Pyromancies Only have fared. Pretty much every scenario, they proved more than adequate to defeat enemies, but there were some obvious outliers. It's been great being able to restore Pyromancies if I was low or out using consumables, but I shortly found out after starting the run that they are limited, meaning eventually I would be out of luck, possibly needing to restart the run if I was really stuck. Thankfully that did not happen. I strangely got invaded and then invaded someone else's world, which for me is a first in this game. Never really got a chance to do DS2 PvP as it was before my time, so it was fun to experience a bit of it. Most people boast how great the balancing was in this game, and it was a bit evident. DS2 may be one of my least favorite Souls games, but that doesn't mean it's terrible. It just means that it's not my cup of tea. With the King's Pets defeated, I'm proud to say this has been Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin completed with Pyromancies only. Well, sorta. As mentioned in the beginning, there was no starting Pyromancer class, so we did have to make it past 2 bosses in order to acquire the Pyromancer's Flame. Nonetheless, afterwards we just used Pyromancies. Found most of the game to be straightforward. Some areas were challenging, but more than doable. This challenge completed, and the subsequent DS1 Pyromancies challenge, all we have left is Dark Souls 3. Stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. It genuinely helps support the channel and push the video to others who might enjoy it. Try to do something kind for someone today, whether it's a small or large gesture. This is your boy Skilled Fawn, and I'm out.